Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery. My name is Paul Clean. I've known sports and training my entire life, but it wasn't until I worked on my mind that I finally started achieving what I believed I was capable of. When I combined mindful and spiritual practices to my already competitive demeanor, I gained a new level of clarity in life and traded my career at Amazon to start Down Dog Athletics. In this podcast, I interview top athletes and coaches to uncover the mindsets of top performers. You'll hear from doctors, authors, and experts in the health space as they break down how to take your mental health, physical health, and performance to the next level. And last but not least, you'll hear from me and my experiences and how I'm cultivating growth for myself and my clients, both mentally and physically. Let's go. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Mindful Muscle Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery. My name is Paul Klingen. I am your host, and I hope you guys have all had an awesome weekend. We got another Mindful Muscle Monday coming at you, and want to touch on a few things. One, I watched the Seahawks this last weekend. If you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, live in Seattle like me, that was atrocious, and I'm just going to chalk it up to this year didn't count, right? COVID didn't get to have home field advantage. Maybe that made a big difference. Also, we just played terrible, but I want to just acknowledge that because that's been something that, had to deal with over the last 24 hours. And one of the coaching groups that I'm in, we do this thing called a WIFL, and it just stands for what I feel like expressing. So I want to get that off my chest. And any Seahawk fans, I feel you. I'm with your pain. But I did make up for it after the Seahawks game by having 3 very intense games of Settlers of Catan, which I had not played before. So we did that with a couple friends, and that made up for it. But we're not here to talk about the Seahawks or board games. If you want to talk about that, shoot me a DM. Would love to talk about that. We're here to talk about, can you get results at home? And what pieces of equipment would I recommend for someone just starting out? So I'm going to have 6 pieces of equipment that I recommend everyone get. And again, this is going to be starting equipment. Obviously, if you can get a squat rack or barbells or a full thing of kettlebells or dumbbells, that's going to be optimal. But what can you do at home with minimal equipment? What does that equipment look like? But before I do that, I want to announce something that I recently finished up and I'm super excited about, and it is my recipe collections. It is a collection of 5 different recipe books where you can get weekly meal plans within them, weekly shopping lists. There's a key. They're going to have vegetarian, low carb, high protein, gluten-free, dairy-free, under 30 minutes, basically whatever it is that you're trying to fit within your nutrition parameters. It gives you a key for that. It's got a barcode scanner so that you can put into MyFitnessPal. Makes it super easy. And then obviously images, easy to follow recipes. And there's 5 of them. So there is the high protein collection, 55 recipes. Plant-based, 58 recipes for all the people that go plant-based. Low carb, 40 recipes. 5 ingredients, 40 recipes. And then a New Year's collection that's just 15. So all in all, I'm going to try and do math in my head really quick, but that's like over 200 recipes. And all this makes it super easy to remove the decision fatigue. And it's like, what should I eat? How much should I eat? It's all done for you, and it's super easy. My clients, I gave everyone a copy of. I've been using it. Clients have been using it. And so for the listeners, this is only available on the podcast. I'm going to use a discount code. You can go to downdogathletics.com and use Mindful Muscle 30 off your entire order of the recipe collections. 1 use per customer. That's Mindful Muscle 30. MINDFUL MUS CLE 30, had to read for a second, Mindful Muscle 30, and you can get access to the entire collection, 30% off everything. So now let's break it down. Can you see results working out at home? I would say if the goal is to lose weight, 100%. I've got several clients that are losing weight at home right now. Gyms have been shut down in Washington for the last 2 months, and the simple ideas of walking more, tracking your nutrition, being aware of what you're eating, right? Losing weight is going to be guided and done a lot through nutrition. So not having access to a gym isn't an excuse, and not having access to classes isn't an excuse. So you can 100% see results from a weight loss standpoint, a body composition standpoint. Now, where some people get hung up is, I don't have access to a gym. I'm going to lose all of my gains, all the muscle. How can I build muscle, Paul? I want to build muscle. I want to at least maintain the muscle that I have. And that's absolutely 100% possible as well. The 3 things you need for hypertrophy, which is building muscle, is increased mechanical tension. So that's time under tension. So spending time with the weights, and whether that's an isometric, an eccentric, or doing slow negatives, that's going to increase time under tension. You're looking at muscle damage, which is the little micro tears and the uh, swelling that you feel after a workout. That's going to happen primarily when you do eccentric work, so again, slow negatives. And then you're looking at metabolic stress, so that's the pump. So you can't just do 5 push-ups and be like, oh man, that was great. Where's my muscle? Right? You got to do a set of push-ups, go to failure, then do a set of some sort of incline press, and then get to the point to where you feel that pump and you actually have some metabolic buildup in that muscle that you're trying to grow. So those are the 3 pieces need for building muscle, and I'm gonna have 5 tips on how you can also do that and make sure that you're applying your programming or any program that I do that or that I build for someone is going to have this. You're looking at 1, slow negatives, 2, isometric, so that's a wall sit, right? You're just sitting there holding those joints at 90 degrees, letting the muscles really build up tension. Full range of motion. A lot of people don't train to full range of motion. Single limb movement, so single arm, single leg. Obviously, when you're limited in how much weight that you have, you want to load up one leg or one arm at a time so that the relative weight is a little bit more challenging. And then you want to make sure that you actually train the muscle to failure. Again, if you are getting to a point where you're having to stop your set because your heart rate is through the roof, or because you're running into pain, or because your grip's going, that's not muscle failure. Muscle failure is when you're doing push-ups and you collapse on your face because your triceps and your chest and your shoulders are like, 1 more rep, homie, and we are done. We are done. That's it. That's muscle failure. And so a lot of times we limit ourselves too mentally. We're like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, I can't get there. Getting to actual muscle failure is the best way to understand what, a hard set is. Because if you're just stopping because you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable, that's not muscle failure. That is mental failure, or your mind letting you down. Muscle failure is going until you can't complete a rep or your form breaks down. So you might be asking, Paul, what kind of equipment do I need? What is the starting equipment? And I would say first, you actually have more already laying around your house than you think you do. So something like a backpack or shopping bags can be easily loaded up with cans or anything that you can put in it, books that would load something up, and then all of a sudden your backpack turns into an empty backpack, or goes from an empty backpack to a 35-pound backpack. And now you're doing front squats, back squats. You've loaded up something that you already have. You didn't have to buy any equipment. Towels can be a great thing to use for sliders, or if you have some sort of hardwood floor, you're doing sliders for core, you're doing sliders for hamstrings, you're doing sliders for push-ups. So towels, backpacks, bags, all these things that you can use and get kind of creative with, 100% already have, and you don't have to spend any money. Now, if you're like, Paul, all right, I'm willing to invest just a little bit, I've got a list of 6 things that you could get, and this list is going to cost you as little as $200. And $200 to have forever is not that big of an investment in your health. You can definitely go up, and I'll point out ways in which you can do that. But again, this is like a starter's kit. This is like, Paul, what do I need? Just like my starter kit. I'm going out. I'm working out at home. Gyms are shut down again. Don't worry. I got you. So first thing that I'm going to say is you want to get a kettlebell. Powder-coated kettlebell, heavy enough for rows, squats, lunges, something like kettlebell swings, some sort of hinging movement like an RDL, single arm presses. Right, you're going to want to have like 1 and 2 if you can to give you that like main piece of equipment that's going to give you the resistance that you need to be building muscle to actually get an effective workout. 1 pound weight, 2 pound weight, 3 pound weights, 4 pound weights, 5 pound weights, unless you're doing like a really intense set of lateral raises, is kind of a waste of equipment. Not to say that you can't get creative with it. But if you're trying to get stronger, build muscle, you need something that's actually going to do that. And so don't get 2 pound weights. Actually get something that's heavy. And for most people, I generally recommend a 25 pound to a 35 pound kettlebell, just because you want to make sure that it's heavy enough that you can press with, that you can row with. You can make legs pretty intense, and like I said, you can load up backpacks, shopping bags in order to hit legs. But if you have a heavy enough kettlebell for the rows and the presses, then you're going to be looking good. So now you might be thinking, all right, Paul, I'll get a kettlebell, but where do I go? Initially, when coronavirus hit, there was nothing on the internet. You absolutely cannot do anything. I think a lot of places now have stocked up. I personally, when I'm working out, use a Rogue Fitness kettlebell, and I have access to several hundred, I don't know how many pieces. I use a lot of Rogue Fitness equipment, especially at the gym that I'm at. However, I was able to find a discount code for a local gym or a local equipment company in the Seattle area. And by Seattle area, I mean Bonnie Lake. So this is more for the people in Seattle. Obviously, if you live outside of Seattle, you can still use this company, but the company's Giant Lifting. And so for a 35-pound kettlebell, it's $72. However, they have a local discount where if you pick it up, you can take 25% off. So now that 72-pound kettlebell is $54. And if you wanted to get more kettlebells and have a variety of weights or get dumbbells or racks or benches, right, you can do that. And you can apply that 25% off if you go and pick it up. So Giant Lifting is a company that I have used, and they're local, and so I want to support them. And so check them out. That will be linked in both the blog for this podcast, but also below in the show notes. So another thing that you can get so that's equipment number one, powder-coated kettlebell. Number two is going to be resistance bands. Giant Lifting calls them strength bands, but I basically call them like the full-length tube without the handles. So this is going to be things that you do for shoulder health, pull-aparts, face pulls. Maybe you have a pull-up bar or something like a jungle gym that your kids play at, right? You can do assisted pull-ups with those. It's going to be able to set up accommodating resistance. So maybe you add bands to the kettlebell that you have that you're doing deadlifts with or rows, and that's going to increase the intensity. You can do hamstring curls with them. You can do biceps, triceps, a bunch of different like accessory movements. And these are going to go from 5 to 35 pounds. So there's a really skinny one. There's I think it's red, then it goes blue, then it goes green. I think that's the color pattern. But anyway, that's the 5 to 35. There's 4 of them. And that's only $15. And again, you can use the local only 25% off discount when you go and pick it up in Bonnie Lake, which is about an hour away. But if you're getting a lot of equipment, totally worth it. All right, so number 3 is going to be a yoga block. And if you want to do yoga, absolutely use the yoga block for that. But I think what I actually like using a yoga block for most is going to be elevating a leg or an arm so that you can get a deeper range of motion and mix it up a little bit with elevated push-ups, with offset push-ups, with elevated reverse lunge or some sort of side lunge. Basically something that when you elevate one foot and you go deeper, now you're getting that full range of motion. You're getting more stretch under load. And so that's going to be really beneficial. Something that I do a lot with myself and with clients is also going to be a lot of breath work. And when you have a yoga block, it's the perfect little 3-inch thing to put underneath your hips or to squeeze or to put your hamstrings on to align your pelvis or align your rib cage. And so I like a little yoga block there. Obviously, as a Lululemon ambassador, I'm going to promote them. So you can get a yoga block for $18 there. You can also get them from anywhere. What I do like about the Lululemon ones, though, is that they're 3 inches, whereas some of the other ones get to be 4 or 5 inches. And 3 inches is all you really need. And I like that height a little bit better. Next is going to be a yoga mat. You can do yoga on it. You can do mobility on it. You can do, obviously, your workouts on it. And that's the big thing that it's going to have a benefit for. If you've got a floor, you got a carpet, you want to make sure that you're not just banging weights around, sweating on it. Yoga mat's going to be something that gives you like your space to work out in, and you can take it anywhere. So that's going to be something that, again, if you go to Lululemon, $88 for a yoga mat. It's going to be nice quality. I can't tell you how many people I've seen get yoga mats, and it just rolls up like this little like receipt, and then it falls apart and it's breaking down everywhere. Like, invest in something one time, get something nice, and you won't have to invest in it again, or at least for like a decade. So that's where I like Lululemon. And even though it is a little bit more expensive than most yoga mats, you're getting the quality and you can be sure of it. Again, versus just going for whatever cheap one that you can find off of Amazon. Speaking of Amazon, the last two, so number 5 and number 6, are going to be things that you can find from Amazon. So mini bands are something that are usually called booty bands, but I like to call them mini bands just to break out. Like, you have your resistance and your strength bands, and then you have your mini bands. A lot of people get them mixed up if you just say, oh, I have bands, and then I'm like, well, what kind of bands? There's so many different bands. But the big thing that you can do with mini bands, obviously, people use all the time for their hips and glutes. So I know we got a lot of runners on the podcast. If you don't have mini bands and you don't bring them with you before your runs, you're missing out, and you're probably going to get increase your likelihood. You're going to definitely increase your likelihood of picking up a little nick, a little injury. And so having those mini bands with you to activate the glutes, to also do a lot of mobility work for shoulders. And you can activate the shoulders a lot with you like put your hands between the mini band, push your hands up against the wall, and like reach out left, reach out right. There's a lot of different things that you can do from an activation, a hip health, a shoulder health, a glute health standpoint, that mini bands are just going to be the best things at getting those done. You can get them really cheap on Amazon. They have SLKZ mini resistance bands. I like having the rubber ones for the wrists because they give you a little bit more ability to stretch them. The ones that I use, the ones that I have at the gym that I use, are a little bit more like fabric, kind of similar to like a sweatshirt. And those are going to be ones that aren't going to roll for the fellas. Those aren't going to rip your leg hairs. So you can go and basically look for ones that are, I think it's like cotton or some sort of, basically looks like a sweater in terms of the fabric that it is. And it's about 2 to 3 inches wide. But for this podcast, I think the mini resistance bands that are the rubber ones are totally fine. And I know that the SLKZ ones are pretty good, and ones that I've used in the past and haven't had any issues with them. And then last but not least is a foam roller. So foam roller, obviously you can do a lot of foam rolling for a recovery standpoint, so to improve mobility. You can get those on Amazon for $16 to get the Amazon Basics ones. But you can also use them. One of the things I love from a squat standpoint is hack squats. You lean up against the wall, put the foam roller there, and now you can slide it up and down with it. You can do something where you lie on your back and you put your heels on the foam roller. You walk it out, walk it back in. So there's a lot that you can still use that foam roller for exercise with, but obviously it's going to be a really good recovery tool and just something that everyone should have in their apartment, in their home, and part of their equipment because it's only $15, $16. And all of that total is $202. If you want to get more, absolutely could. But between the stuff that you already have at home and this little starter kit, I think it's really good arsenal. And then from there, 100% can you see results from a weight loss standpoint, a maintenance standpoint, but definitely a building muscle standpoint. And then obviously as soon as you can, you get back in the gym, use the machines, use the barbells, use everything else, the cables that they have there, but you held over with this little starter kit from an exercise standpoint. Cool. So now I want to go into the mindfulness tip and something that really has been resonating with me over the last week. Obviously on Mindful Muscle Mondays, we have training exercise tips or nutrition, and then we have some sort of mindset mindfulness tip. And the big one for me this last week, I noticed that I haven't been journaling or meditating as much as I have. And the reason is because I am so clear on what it is that I want to do for the next month, for the next 2 months, that spending time internally reflecting, I feel like is going to slow me down. And I'll use a couple examples for this. But in December, a lot of times going up into the new year, we spend a lot of time in reflection, right? We spend a lot of times like, what do I want? How did this last year go? Like what do I want to create in the future? And January then should be a time of action. And from a sports standpoint, I think I like using this example because if you spend too much time thinking, you can overthink yourself and then you run into analysis paralysis and it slows you down. And it's important to slow down, but you want to slow down to align, to speed up. That's why I love the saying and use it a lot with a lot of my marketing. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Once you get like slow down, you smooth out and you get going fast, you don't necessarily need to take the time to be like, all right, where am I going? Because you know where you're going and you're going there really fast. So as an athlete, if you are doing really well from a shooting standpoint as a basketball player, if your swing is going really well, you don't want to start overthinking things. And this is where something like in transparency, like I will make sure that I'm staying committed to the visualization and to being really present. And those are things that I have been doing. But in terms of spending a lot of time reflecting in the journal, I haven't been doing as much. I've done it a couple times, but it's not necessarily been a daily habit the last couple weeks. Because again, I'm feeling super motivated and super clear, and I want to get after it. And I don't want to overthink myself and be like, is this what I want to do? Like, I know what I want to do, so don't question it. And I think there's a balance to all of it, right? Obviously, I need to make sure that I'm staying on top of it because what got me that clarity is something that I want to make sure that I still continue to do. And then when you finish the season, I think that's the big thing that you got to identify is what season are you in? If it's a season of reflection, which the end of December generally is, then yeah, like spend a lot of time meditating, journaling, and doing different things to make sure that you are aligned, that things are smoothed out so that you can go fast. But then when it is a season of boom, 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 that's going to be something that you're much more focused on. And so again, from like an athlete standpoint, from a workout standpoint, you might spend a lot of time workshopping and breaking down something and making sure that it's super smooth and super like the process and everything is understood. But then once it comes time to execute and act, like you don't want to be spending a bunch of time slowing down and breaking it down once you know that what you're doing is working really well. And again, so there's a balance between that. And there's definitely going to come a time where I do need to be like, all right, cool. I accelerated through this season of my life. I need to slow down, reorient myself. What do I want to do? What do I want to create? I'll probably be there about mid-February where I'll say like, all right, cool. I got through this season. What do I want to do now? What do I want to create now? But it's a balance, right? It's that slowing down. It's that going forward. It's the pulling back of the bowstring so that you can accelerate forward 2 times faster. And wherever you're at, try to see, all right, what season am I in? And then really honor that season. And then when you do get aligned and you do have clarity on what you want, go and attack it. Go get it. That's all I have for the mindfulness tip. It does kind of go in the opposite direction of what I'm usually talking about, but again, there's got to be a balance. You got to go smooth, you got to go slow, you got to go fast, and hopefully this helps you kind of realize like there's got to be a yin and a yang to everything that you do from a mental standpoint as well as a physical standpoint as well. So, hope you enjoyed the podcast. This Thursday, I'm going to be releasing an episode on Your Transformation Blueprint. It's a little mini-series, 4 episodes where I interview people that have seen transformations. And this one is going to be Brian Schmitz. He lost over 60 pounds in a year. Someone that I've worked with, had the pleasure of working with, I think over the last almost a year and a half, almost 18 months. And so his story, his feedback, his advice is really good, really powerful for anyone that is starting their journey or in the middle of their journey. A year and a half ago, he was in a very different place, and he talks about what he did to make those changes. So hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Be sure and leave a 5-star rating and review if you enjoy the Down Dog Athletics podcast, the Mindful Muscle podcast. And let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any feedback. Shoot me a message, Paul_Klingen on Instagram. You can shoot me an email, paul@downdogathletics.com. Other than that, I'll catch you guys next time Thursday for the Transformation Blueprint. And I'll catch you guys on Monday for the Mindful Muscle Monday podcast. See you around.